This morning I woke up and thought to myself, robot plus spider probably equals fun, so let's make a robot spider. I suck at 3D modeling, so let's try out the new Fab platform that Unreal added. Let's search spider. No, ooh. Okay, robot spider. Oh my god, there's so much disturbing stuff here. Spider cat. Who came up with this? Okay, we found this, which looks pretty cool. It's only $20. There's no skeletal mesh. For those who don't know, meshes are basically just 3D graphics. Skeletal meshes include bones that can be used to manipulate the graphics. Apparently this asset does not come with a skeletal mesh, so unless I'm okay with a robot spider that just slides around on the ground without moving its legs, which I am not, I just wasted $20. Okay, we found this guy. He's $30 and has a video of him walking around, so it should include a skeletal mesh. Let's go! He also comes with a ton of animations, but I want to instead make procedural animations for him. Okay, so for those who don't know, usually you have a bunch of pre-made animations for skeletal meshes, and you use a bunch of tools like blend spaces and state machines to have characters select and blend through all of the animations depending on what actions they are taking. This is nice because at any given time, the character will be playing an animation that has been handmade to feel very realistic and lively. But these animations often don't line up very well with what the character is actually doing. Procedural animations, on the other hand, use math and logic to animate the characters. This is nice because once you define a set amount of rules, your character will be able to behave in a much more dynamic way. But because they're using math and logic, characters animated procedurally can often look like robots. But good news, the spider is a robot. Okay, so now if I drag the bot around, all the legs just move with the body. But we want them to look like they're actually taking steps. So first, let's get them to always stick to the floor. We do this by just drawing a line from the elbow past the foot, and wherever the line hits something, we move the foot to that location. Okay, now let's stop the feet from dragging on the floor by locking their location to a point in the world. Now once the body moves too far away from the legs, let's reset their position. Okay, now we gotta make it so that they don't all reset at the same time. Now this still looks super goofy for a bunch of reasons, but the biggest one is that by the time the legs move to their default positions, it's too late. The spider has already moved further ahead. So instead of just resetting their positions to the defaults, let's use the spider's velocity to offset the end location of the feet. Instead of teleporting the feet to the final locations, let's move them gradually. Okay, now let's get the legs to actually lift off the ground. To do that, you can just calculate the distance between the foot and the end point, and the further away they are, the higher the foot moves. This way, as the foot approaches its final location, we bring it closer and closer to the ground. Looks pretty good. Now let's just add a rotation to the body to get it to lean in the direction it's moving. This is actually done in a pretty interesting way. Unreal has a built-in aim method which takes in a location and basically tells the bone to point to that location. So if we take the spider's velocity and use that as the location, we get this result. But he's leaning way too far ahead, so instead, let's add a pretty big number to the z of the velocity. That way, the robot won't lean as far forward. Getting the turret to face the player took about 5 hours, which is 4.5 hours longer than it should have. I really don't want to talk about it, so we're just going to skip over this part. We don't want the robot to only be able to move when I drag him around manually, so how can we get him to move around autonomously? Well, Unreal actually has built-in navigation systems. A built-in nav mesh to determine all the walkable areas of a level, and a built-in function to calculate paths using this nav mesh. But there isn't actually a way to get this nav mesh to recognize 90-degree walls or ceilings as walkable surface areas, so that won't work. Instead, let's just draw a line from the spider to the floor in front of it. Then whenever this line hits a surface, we take that location along with the surface's normal to calculate a point above the surface. Then we can do some math to get the spider to slowly move towards that point. Okay, so the white diagonal line is the original line trace that's looking for something that it hits. The red circle or sphere is where it's hitting, and then the green sphere is the location above that the spider is actually trying to move to. And so here's what's happening is that as the line hits the floor, the spider tries to move closer to the wall, which causes the line to then hit the wall and then calculate a point in front of the wall, which is closer to the floor. So then the spider tries to move to the floor, but as it gets closer to the floor, it starts calculating calculating a point near the wall again. So it's basically just flipping back and forth between trying to move to the floor and trying to move to the wall. So we need a way to get the spider to align its body to the surface of the wall. I actually spent another couple of hours trying to figure this out, but I ended up stumbling upon this video which gave me this solution. Draw 4 more lines going backwards and to the right and left, and then use the angles between all of the hit locations as well as the normal of the floor to calculate the final rotation. Now with that, we've pretty much finished the spider. Getting the machine gun and missiles to fire at me wasn't very interesting, so I'm not going to bother trying to explain it. If you want a chance to fight this little guy, go wishlist the game on Steam. I plan to release it for free sometime next month.